fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to a somewhat somber emergency edition of the Falcoholic Live as we discuss the Falcons trading franchise quarterback icon legend Matt Ryan to the Colts today. A sad day for Falcons fans because Ryan truly is one of the best, if not the best player ever to grace this franchise. Obviously, we'll talk about the trade compensation, which was just a third-round pick, and why that's very bad. Also, the whole situation will get some discussion. But before we devolve into that, we do want to say some nice things about Ryan and his time with the team. So we'll start it off with that. But before that, want to welcome in my guest today. First of all, Gina Kelly. She's at Gina Thomas on the Twitters. Gina, how are you doing today?
Well, I could be better. I could be better.
Yeah.
The Falcons have effectively ruined the past several weeks of my life.
Yeah, it's been a steady downslope over the past. I was trying to be on vacation. I think you were trying to be on vacation at some point, and they just wouldn't let us go. They just can't let us have a nice time. That's just sort of their thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, especially lately, their brand.
Yeah, that is their brand, is ruining lives, across the world. So, also with us, we have Evan Birchfield, Director of Guest Personnel. He is at Evan Birchfield on the Twitters. Evan, how are you doing today? Outside of gestures widely.
Outside of that.
Yeah.
Outside of everything Falcons related, I'm okay.
Yeah, okay, good to know. Adnan Ikic is also with us. He is at Say Which Way. Adnan, same question to you.
I'm actually more so impressed than anything else by just how bad the Falcons can be in the off season when there's no football being played. Like, I don't know. I didn't think, I was like, all right, the season's over, so now we can have a nice little break before next season. But somehow they hit rock bottom in the off season.
Yeah, somehow, I didn't think it could get worse from our last, emergency show of, Ridley's been suspended for the whole year. I mean, I was sure that would be the worst thing to happen to the team this offseason. And then we've since then had two worse things happen. So, now I'm just wondering what the next worst thing will be.
The Calvin Ridley news feels so long ago.
Yes. It was that last season? Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Absolutely wild. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Like I said, we're going to start off on a positive note, just remembering some nice Matt Ryan moments and giving him the send-off he deserves before we launch into I think of a good, at least roast would probably be generous, of the team for this trade and entire botch situation. But yeah, let's start off with Ryan getting the send-off he deserves. Obviously holds all the franchise records at quarterback, is going to go down as one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. Obviously, unquestionably the best Falcons quarterback. I would say the best overall Falcons player, both on and off field. Ryan was a consummate professional, always came in and did more than what was expected, was a pillar of the community as well. No one ever had a bad thing to say about him off field. On field, people shouldn't have had anything bad to say about him, but people can never be satisfied. And I'm going to miss him. I'm sad to see him go. I am happy that he does get a chance at a Super Bowl with Indianapolis. We can talk about that too. But Gino, I'll let you go first to talk about Matt Ryan's legacy in Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, this is the part that I haven't even really let myself think about yet, because I just think about coming off of 2007 and how awful that season was from every angle. And then, I know some people weren't happy and I was one of them when the team drafted Ryan, because I didn't watch Boston college football. I was like, who the heck is this guy? I wanted Glenn Dorsey, like Dave did, like many people did, but Ryan ended up being the absolute best choice. And he has been, like you said, a consummate professional. He has played at a consistently high level for 14 years. And I really am going to miss him terribly. He brought us some of the most exciting moments in franchise history. That 2016 season, his MVP season, is one for the history books. He was just absolutely a joy to watch that year. And I mean, the Colts got a good one, and I think that he'll be really good there. I'm excited to watch Ryan play when he's not running for his life on every snap. I think that their offensive line is a huge upgrade to what Ryan is used to here in Atlanta. So I think that would be great. But I want to end my tribute with one of my favorite Matt Ryan memory, which is him yelling at the Panthers to get the F off our field.
Yeah,
that's the other thing. Like Ryan always was a great face of the franchise. He was above reproach with his public persona, but he also had that spark and that fire, and I always love that about him. So yeah, get the F off my field and get effing set are two of my favorite Matt Ryan moments.
Yeah, that's pretty hard to top. Those are some terrific ones. Adnan, I'll go to you next for some of your kind words about Matt Ryan and his time with the Falcons.
I mean, really, like Gina said, after 2007, this team was completely off the rails. And I mean, they had the whole fiasco with Michael Vick ending up in prison. And, that felt like rock bottom for a franchise which had visited rock bottom many times over. And, we may be there again right now. But for Matt Ryan to come in and to immediately stabilize the franchise, to immediately sort of bring them out of the wilderness of irrelevance, save for a couple of nice seasons here and there from the past 40 seasons. That pick could not have been more of a home run, and not just on the field but off the field. Matt Ryan, you never heard about anything from Matt Ryan off the field except for when he was posting pictures of his children, or maybe saying something corny, or just not being able to read anything from his very boring press conferences. And that was exactly what the Falcons franchise needed coming off of the whole Vic stuff. And for Matt Ryan to come in here, and we can rehash the stats, and Matt Ryan is, I think, without a doubt, the greatest Falcon of all time. And, it sure is, it's not Deion Sanders. He was here for, 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Julio Jones is in the conversation, sure, but I think Ryan was ahead of him. Tommy Nobis as well, for the older Falcons fans who can remember those days. But Ryan, this team had 8 playoff appearances in 42 seasons before Matt Ryan, and they had 6 in 14 years with Matt Ryan. They had 3 division titles in 42 years before Ryan, and they had 3 in these 14 seasons with Matt Ryan. He was the only Falcon to ever win the MVP award. He should have won the Super Bowl, but Devontae Freeman couldn't get a block, and there was a holding, and Kyle Shanahan didn't run the ball, and there was just a perfect disaster for the Falcons. But Matt Ryan did everything asked for him in that Super Bowl to win it. And my thing is, I'm just that's what hurts the most, because we should be talking about how Matt Ryan led this team to greatness and how he was a Super Bowl champion and is without a doubt, a Hall of Famer. And I think he will get into Canton eventually. But I mean, I don't know. It's stuff like this afterwards that really kind of rubbed salt in those wounds, which healed, but which now are becoming a bit opened again. But yeah, Matt Ryan, absolutely, without a doubt. And I don't think there should even be an argument that he's the greatest Falcon of all time.
Yeah.
And it's going to be some really hard, big shoes to fill. And I think we were spoiled. We were spoiled to have lucked into Matt Ryan in 2008, because the quarterbacks taken in the first round between 2008 and 2016, there were not many good ones, and none of them were as good as Matt Ryan was for that extended period of time. I mean, Stafford was in 2009. Cam Newton was pretty good for a while, but he wasn't as good as Ryan for as long as he was. Andrew Luck retired early. But up until that Mahomes draft, the quarterback classes were pretty shit in the first round year after year. And the Falcons, for it to have been the Falcons to have lucked into that Hall of Famer, that's that's pretty wild in my opinion. But yeah, I think Matt Ryan ushered in the greatest era in Falcons history, and it's going to be really, really difficult to match that in the coming years.
Yeah, it almost impossible, I would say. But it doesn't mean that they can't get another good quarterback. But folks have to realize Matt Ryan was the best this team has ever had. He may be the best they'll ever have. You look at some teams that have been searching for a franchise quarterback for 30 years. It's not that simple to just flip a switch and you get another guy. So don't assume that it's going to just happen. Yeah.
People are like, all right, we'll just draft a quarterback in the first round, and he'll be as good as Matt, or he'll take us to the next level. Like, the Chiefs, look at how much playoff success the Chiefs had before they lucked into Patrick Mahomes. Look at the Bears 70 years later, still looking for someone to match Sid Luckman.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not as easy as people think. You can't just flip a switch. So, Evan, obviously last but not least, Evan, anything you wanted to add about Matt Ryan's legacy in Atlanta?
No, I mean, I think Gina and Adnan kind of summed it up. He's, when every Falcons fan does their little Mount Rushmore thing, like Matt Ryan's like definitely on it, and then you can argue about everybody else. I mean, in my opinion, he's the greatest Falcon of all time. Personally, I mean, it's different for me because, you know, I became, I mean, I've been a fan since I was 6 or whatever, but when Matt Ryan joined the Falcons, I was 17, and now I'm 31. Like he's been, the quarterback for basically my, I guess, young adult life. Um, so it really hasn't sunk in. I think I'd have a better answer in like a couple months when you start seeing like on the field stuff and number two is just not there. Um, but I'm kind of, as much as I'm going to be sad, I think it's a good situation for him. Whether, obviously the Watsons thing probably pushed this to actually happening, but going to play for the Colts, who are more equipped to actually make a playoff run, opposed to this disastrous roster we have currently. I'm glad we don't have to see him go out there and get destroyed, 17 games to go win 6 or 7 games. But yeah, it's kind of a tough moment, and I think it's one of those that's like you're not going to really appreciate the moment until later on because then memories kick in as the team suffers. We're not going to just get like a franchise quarterback this year. It may take several years. As Adnan said, there's teams like the Browns, Washington, all these different teams have been searching for a Matt Ryan type. And you can blame him for, not winning Super Bowls if you want. But if you look at stats and stuff like that, if you actually paid attention to the games, like it wasn't his fault. He was never the issue. Sure, he could have made better throws at times, but like he was never the issue. It's just sad, but I'm happy for him personally. I think it's going to be a better situation for him.
Yeah, and that's a good way to segue into sort of there's two sides to this trade. There was three sides. There's the Colts side, there's the Falcons side, but there's also Ryan's side. And I think looking at it from Ryan's perspective, this is easily the best thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
The Falcons weren't going to be seriously competing this year, and maybe they could have started to put something together next year. But Ryan needs to compete right now. Like he's still very good. He's still very good right now, and I think this year and next year you should probably expect him to be playing at a high level. But anything after that, it's not like it's impossible that he could keep playing well. I mean, quarterbacks play into their 40s now. It happens. But you don't know for sure what's going to happen with your body at this age and how it's going to hold up. And I think Ryan will have more longevity than maybe people are expecting because he has never been a guy that's depended on a cannon arm, that's depended on this great athleticism. He's always been super durable. So I think he's a cerebral quarterback and those guys are the ones that tend to last longer. But I think for Ryan, it's like you need to be in a situation where you can compete now. Like you don't want to waste your age 37 season in a rebuild year. You need to go use that age 37 season at least to get your foot in the door with a contender like the Colts. And I think the roster makes a ton of sense. That offensive line is fantastic. That running game is maybe the best in the league. The weapons aren't great, but we've seen Ryan make it work with mediocre weapons before. It's not like he can't. And they have a great defense. So Ryan doesn't have to shoulder the entire load like he's had to do in Atlanta so many times. So I'm happy for him. I think this is a good situation for him to go into, and I think it'll give him a chance. You can't ever guarantee these things, but I think it will give him a chance to win a Super Bowl. Should have been 2 Super Bowls, but we won't touch on that today. That's for another dark time. But yeah, Evan, I'll let you actually take the first crack just because we did you previously. But what do you think about his fit in Indy?
I think it's a good fit. I always thought, in his young career, Michael Pittman Jr. has been pretty solid. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor. The offensive line comparison between the Colts and Falcons it's not even close. I think it's a good fit. It's indoors. It's not like he's going to go have to play for Buffalo or something where he's outdoors, like he's going to be in an actual dome that doesn't open. So yeah, I think it's a good fit. Like I'm not going to go out and say, oh yeah, they're Super Bowl contenders now, but I think they're playoff contenders. Like they were one game away from making the playoffs, but they lost to the Jaguars. Like
Carson
now
Wentz,
you've got to
yeah.
right now you've got to upgrade at quarterback. So I don't think it's crazy to think they could win a playoff game. I think that's probably their floor, unless something disastrous happens. Because I mean,
Right.
really, that team just needed good quarterback play, not great quarterback play, but just good quarterback play, and they weren't getting it. So I'm happy for him. I think it's a pretty good fit. If he stayed in Atlanta, realistically, not to be pessimistic, but he wasn't going to have a playoff push. He was just going to get older and get hit more. So now he's got a chance to have a legit playoff push. So
yeah. Adnan, what do you think about the Indy fit?
It's a really good fit. I think among all of the teams that were interested in Ryan, Indianapolis seemed like the best possible fit. You have Frank Reich, who is a master play caller over there and one of the best and most underrated coaches in the NFL. It was under him when Carson Wentz had his best season when he was the offensive coordinator of Philadelphia, and the Wentz reunion didn't kind of work out last year. But I still really, really like Frank Reich as a play caller. And then beyond that, you have a very solid offensive line. He certainly won't be getting as beat up as he would have been in Atlanta this year. So I'm pretty sure that Sarah is and the whole Ryan family is pretty happy about that. He gets to play in a dome still. Indianapolis is very cold, but they are indoors up there. And, I haven't mentioned Jonathan Taylor, who last season was the best running back in the NFL after Derrick Henry's injury. They have some nice young wide receivers. I think I saw some Colts players on Twitter lobbying Julio Jones to go join them and to have a reunion, which I don't know how I would feel about that. But yeah, just from a personal standpoint. But yeah, the Colts should be. This is a fantastic move for the Colts. Like this is an A+ grade for them.
Oh yeah.
They give up a late third round pick, which we'll get into from Atlanta's perspective.
Yes.
And they get essentially they open up their Super Bowl window for the next couple of years because I don't think that you can win a Super Bowl in these days without having a good quarterback. And before this trade, Indianapolis's quarterback was Sam Ehlinger, and no offense to the former Texas Longhorn, but I'm not picking Sam Ehlinger to duel it out with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and those guys in the AFC.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a fantastic fit for the Colts. It's great for Matt Ryan, and I'm rooting for the Colts and the AFC the same way that Lions fans were hoping that Matt Stafford could get it done with the Rams last year. I definitely want to see a lot of success for Ryan and the Colts coming up. And, I'm glad that the last couple of years of his career won't be ruined the way that Atlanta ruined his last 4 years, the way they wasted the remainder of his prime.
Yeah. Gina, go ahead with any of your thoughts on that situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, just to echo what Adnan and Evan both said, it's a great fit for Ryan. He's a great acquisition for the Colts. In 2016, Matt had a strong running game and he had a strong offensive line. And look at the season that he had. And, it may be a little bit of a learning curve for him as he adapts to a new system and all that kind of stuff. But he has been doing this for 14 years. And he is a consummate professional. I don't think that he'll have much trouble settling in. I'm really excited to see that Colts team compete this year. I think that they're going to be great. And it's going to be fun to watch Matt Ryan not getting knocked on his ass every single play.
Yes, I'm sure Sarah Ryan will be happy about that.
I'm sure.
And the ice cubes too. So yeah, I mean, if you think about it from that perspective too, like the Colts were one of the least onerous teams he possibly could have gone to as well. So, happy that it wouldn't have been an NFC South team, but there's a lot worse teams he could have gone to in terms of, our personal opinions on those teams, and I think the Colts is a good one. It makes a lot of sense, and I think the fit is obviously good. So now let's transition into our roast of the Falcons, because as you guys said, terrific A+ trade for the Colts, very bad trade for the Falcons because of many things. And I think, Gina, you have a lot to say about this topic, so I'll open the floor for you to get us started on this.
I have been a little bit loud about this on Twitter. I am very, very angry about how this whole thing has been handled. And I know that y'all already did the show about Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to get into that except to say that the Falcons bungled it from start to finish. And then they ended up in a situation of their own creation where they had no choice but to trade Matt, absorb $40 million in dead money. That's almost 20% of the cap, of the entire cap. That is completely nuts. And they get a 3rd round pick for a recent MVP player, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And it's not even the Colts' best 3rd round pick. It's their worst 3rd round pick.
Yes, it's like 80 something. Yeah.
The whole thing makes me so mad. I mean, I think that it reeks of ineptitude. I think that they didn't need to scramble to try to get Deshaun Watson. I think that if they really wanted to go out and try to acquire another face of the franchise kind of quarterback, which I question that about Watson anyway, but if they wanted to do that, I think the time to start preparing for that was months ago. Not like try to scramble all this together in a week. And I think that the fact that they did try to pull it all together in a week and then ended up having to, go this route, it's just terrible. I mean, it's just absolutely terrible. They deserve all of the criticism that they're going to get for this, every bit of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the whole thing was bungled from start to finish. And it's not like it could have, there's an alternate universe where this situation is very similar, but nowhere near as bad, because at the end of the day, like in a vacuum, going out and trying to get a 26-year-old quarterback that might be able to be your starter, that's like a top 5 quarterback, at the end of the day, like that could be looked at in a vacuum as a good move.
Yeah.
The circumstances surrounding it make it not a good move. And then they didn't get that. So that's the other side of the coin. So now you don't get that guy and you've pissed off your franchise icon who has basically always been doing basically whatever it takes, always been a consummate professional, always been a great guy, never said a word. Now he wants out because like this is the last straw and I totally get it. And like he doesn't want to be a part of this dumpster fire. Yeah. I mean, who would want to be a part of this dumpster fire? But like the whole thing just reeks of, we don't know what we're doing. Like if you were really going to do this, why didn't you take Justin Fields last year? I mean, we all love Kyle Pitts, don't get me wrong. So I guess it must be that they didn't like Justin Fields. That's the only thing I can think of. They apparently did like Lance, but yeah.
But again, like, I don't know how you look at Justin Fields, who honestly is, more of a prototypical pocket passer than a mobile quarterback. So kind of more similar to Matt Ryan. I think that it would have been a natural transition for Fields. Yeah. Deshaun Watson is a very different kind of quarterback. You bring him in, your offense is going to fundamentally change. And again, like, what? Like, none of it makes sense. I'm sorry. No. I just keep getting all worked up.
There's so many aspects of it. Let's go to Adnan now. Adnan, what are some of your thoughts on this? Because there's so many ways we could tackle this. Go ahead.
Did you guys ever watch the Fairly Odd Parents growing up?
Yes, I did.
Well, my kids did. I watched it as an adult.
Yes. So, do you guys remember there was that running joke that Timmy was like the worst student possible, and he'd always get like an F in class, and Mr. Crocker would always enjoy giving him these Fs. And I remember there was one joke where he just gave him a super F, where it was like an F with like a cape in the back.
Oh yeah, it's super F. Yes, I remember that episode. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this reminds me of that. So I'd say the Falcons got like a super F on this trade, because don't get me wrong, I'm not mad that they traded Matt Ryan. The Falcons next season weren't really going to win anything with or without Matt Ryan. Last year they won 7 games, but I kept saying to kind of pump the brakes for next season a little bit, because of those 7 games, I think 6 of them, I think they were like 6-1 in 1-score games, which is completely ridiculous and unsustainable, and the schedule is really light last year, and it's going to be really, really gruesome this coming year. I think they have to face the AFC West, the AFC North. Like those teams are, no, it's just the Chargers out of the AFC West.
Okay, good.
I was about to say, so we're going to face like literally the top four playoff teams from the AFC then.
No, it's just the Chargers. They are facing the AFC North though, so
okay.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
My gripe here is with the compensation that they got, because I don't get me wrong, Matthew Stafford is really, really good, and he is a few years younger than Matt Ryan, and I wasn't really expecting the Falcons to get what the Lions got for Stafford just because of the age difference.
Right.
But I don't think that there's that much of a difference between Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford to where the Lions got 2 first-rounders and a decent starting quarterback in Jared Goff, whereas the Falcons get a 3rd-round pick, which isn't even Indianapolis's best 3rd-round pick. So there was not that big of a gap between Ryan and Stafford. And this was just completely botched from the Falcons' perspective every step of the way. They got completely used by Deshaun Jackson.
Jackson. There's a lot of Deshaun's,
they got used by Deshaun Watson as leverage. Deshaun called the Falcons, and he ended up getting $230 million guaranteed from the Browns because of the Falcons' presence within those negotiations. For the record, I do think that Atlanta's presence at the very least kept the Saints from getting him. So, yay, that's a win, I guess. But you essentially destroyed all of your leverage that you had in a Matt Ryan trade. You worked against the clock, a clock of your own making, with Matt Ryan's roster bonus due by 4 p.m. today. And essentially you gave yourself no negotiating power in this trade. And, that's why the GM for the Colts, Chris Ballard, he completely bent the Falcons front office over in this trade. And, like we said, good for the Colts. It's an A+ trade for them. But the Atlanta, it's amazing. Just within the past, I'd say week, 7-8 days, we went from, okay, this will be a nice quiet off season. What middle of the pack free agents can the Falcons get? What wide receiver can we bring back? Russell Gage. Maybe we can sign Alan Lazard. Lorenzo Carter. I would have been so hyped for this move a couple of weeks ago. To now, we're talking about just cataclysmic levels of ineptitude from the Falcons, and I mean, this is just a missteps every single step of the way, starting from the top, starting at ownership, because there is no way in hell that the Falcons went into those Deshaun Watson negotiations without Arthur Blank's blessing. And I'm pretty sure that I would venture to guess that Arthur Blank was the main person driving that boat to Deshaun Watson. It goes down to the GM, and I don't know how, again, with the Matt Ryan trade, I don't know how much Arthur Blank meddled within this trade as well. It's impossible to know. But this regime has kind of lost out on all goodwill that they had built up from last year, where they had a very successful Julio Jones trade. They brought in Cordero Patterson. They made some nice middle of the road moves. They won more games than I was expecting them to last year. Well, in all honesty, I was a blatant homer, like I always am. So I expected them to win more. I said that they'd win more than they should, but that was just me being a homer. They won more than that roster dictated that they should have. Now you're just talking about shitty PR after shitty PR, and you're talking about a team that will be probably the worst team in the NFL. Think about this. A year ago, we were talking about just how shitty of a situation the Houston Texans were in. Like, the Texans look like the Chiefs compared to the Atlanta Falcons right now. At least they have all those first round picks for Watson trade.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's the big thing about it. And like, honestly, like trading Matt Ryan, I think we all were in favor of it. Like, he needed to be traded. He needed to go someplace where he could compete, like what you were saying. This is a great fit for him. I think it's best for his career. It's best for the Falcons. They needed to get out of that contract. They needed to really start their rebuild in earnest and have a real plan. The problem is, because of, everything that happened last weekend, they were in an awful bargaining position, and they were backed into a corner, like you said, with Ryan's bonus being due. Everyone knew it. Everyone knew it was going on, and now they get jack shit. Excuse my language. This is explicit warning on this show, by the way, guys, in case you didn't know. You get jack shit for Ryan. A 3rd-round pick for Ryan is an embarrassment. An embarrassment. That is embarrassing, pitiful return. I cannot say that any other way. That is awful. There is no way you could tell me to my face that that's anywhere near good return for Matt Ryan. You got fleeced. You got bent over, as Adnan said. That is a complete joke of a return. Like, I would hang up the phone if that was an offer that I got for Matt Ryan, especially if it's like, oh no, we're not even going to give you 72. You have to take 83. Like, shut up. Like, are you serious? Like, that's what you took. Like, just keep him at that point. Like, just for your honor, Terry Fontenot, for your own personal honor as a GM, to have that black mark on your resume now of, wow, look at how easy it is to fleece Terry Fontenot. He took a 3rd-round pick for his franchise quarterback. Now, ignoring how bad the compensation was, there are reasons why it was lower. Like we said, the Falcons' bargaining position was awful. Ryan wanted out. He had to waive his no-trade clause to wherever he wanted to go, and apparently he was demanding a new contract, which ended up being false because he's not getting a new contract from the Colts. His contract's staying exactly the same, except they're giving him a little bit more guaranteed money. At least that's what Lance Zierlein was tweeting at me a few minutes ago. So like the whole contract thing driving the price down ended up being bullshit because that's not true. He's not getting a new contract. So I don't get it. Like, I guess they felt like they had to move him because they couldn't keep him now or something. I mean, they had the void year restructure signed. Like, Ryan couldn't back out of that restructure. It was already signed. They just hadn't turned it into the league yet. So like, if that's all you're going to get for Ryan, you may as well just ride it out with him for a year and then trade him next year. Like, I don't.
Well,
yeah.
And I did read that the restructure, it wasn't just not filed to the league, that I think Ryan had rescinded his agreement.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so I think that was part of the issue there. But like, I suspect that Matt Ryan was like, I am not going to play here anymore. I mean, if I were him, I would have said, I'm out. I don't care what you can get from me. I'm gone.
Exactly.
And I think that he was totally within his rights to do that, because I think that the way the Falcons handled everything with Deshaun Watson was really disrespectful to Ryan.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was. Like, I don't blame Ryan at all for wanting out, and he was right to demand to be traded for how they treated him. And like, you could miss me with this whole it's a business and all this. Like,
Kevin,
yes, it's a business.
Not to cut you off, but the Falcons just signed Marcus Mariota.
Oh, hell yeah. It's Mariota season, baby. Let's go. All right. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a minute, folks. But
how fun.
I know. Get excited. Get excited.
Mariota's this year's sacrificial lamb.
Yes. Poor Mariota. At least he's a little bit mobile, right? So he could run around behind that terrible offensive line.
That's how it works.
Yeah. So Gina's absolutely correct that Matt Ryan was right to demand out. And like, I think honestly, to give the Falcons a little credit, I think they could have played hardball. They could have said, this return isn't good enough, Ryan. Sorry, you have to stay here. And it could have been ugly and all this stuff. But I think they decided it's best that we just move Ryan. We'll take what we can get and go from here. So I think they actually did Matt Ryan a solid by agreeing to this trade, even though the trade was pitiful. So they deserve a little bit of credit for treating a franchise icon with that level of respect and taking such poor compensation in exchange for letting him leave, which he deserved. But I mean, the compensation is a joke. I mean, that's awful compensation. I mean, I thought at worst they would get multiple day 2 picks. Like they literally just traded Carson Wentz for two-thirds a couple weeks ago. Carson Wentz, who's a bad hurt quarterback, they got 2/3 for him. And they couldn't even pony up their higher third from that trade for Matt Ryan. So, just embarrassing just to note that. But, yeah, that's how I feel. So, get it out. Anybody else have anything they want to vent on that before we continue the conversation?
I do want to say I'm going to be very interested to see how they market this team. Obviously, like I was thinking before, and now it's like who's showing up to see Marcus Mariota? Like, we just traded our franchise quarterback, and they said, let's get Mariota. Like,
if I was
just a few. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's crazy to think just a few seasons ago we had Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley, and now we have none of them. Just
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
A year ago.
Yeah.
This time last year we had those guys.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. Go ahead.
If I was in the Falcons marketing department, I'd demand a raise, or their PR department. Because,
demand a trade also.
Yeah, like how do you market this? Like, if you thought that the Benz was empty the last couple of years,
that's the irony of it. Like we assumed they kind of, with the Watson thing, it was okay. We're gonna put asses in the chairs. Like, people want to see excitement. Now you've gone like the complete opposite direction, from Deshaun Watson to Marcus Mariota. Like, that's such a oh goodness.
From the sublime to the ridiculous. Yes.
If you buy one of those $5 lower bowl tickets this year at the Benz and you yell out, I'm sure you'll be able to get an echo from how empty that stadium is going to be in the falls of on the Sundays of this fall. Like, oh my goodness. And I said it in our Falcoholic group chat and on Twitter, I feel really bad for the people that got scammed into buying those PSLs after that Super Bowl season, because this is just, legalized robbery at this point from the Atlanta, especially the people that had to make those like payment plans for like 10, 15 years for those PSLs, because this team is not worth the product on the field right now. I mean, I don't even want to watch them on TV, let alone.
I don't even want to watch Game Pass. Yeah.
I'll be watching a lot of Red Zone and and tracking a lot of fantasy teams this time. The only time I'll only watch the Falcons this year is on the Red Zone channel, and the other team is in our Red Zone about to score a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can get Jermaine Johnson and some defensive players, and we could actually be like, we actually want to see the defense. We'll change the channel when the offense is on the field. We actually want to watch the defense because, Casey Hayward coming in. We got Isaiah Oliver back. I think Lorenzo Carter is actually a pretty good edge 2 signing. You get Jermaine Johnson in here, some more defensive pieces. There we go. We're going to be watching the defense and changing the channel when the offense is on the field. I can't remember the last time that was the case. So,
that stadium's empty. It deserves to be empty. Because and it's gonna be a really bad. I know a lot of people are deferring on those PSL payments, and it's gonna be a really, really bad look if the Falcons go after them. Because they're allowed to technically, but I mean, you can't really blame people for not wanting to pay for that shit. But
exactly.
This team has shown that they don't care about negative PR this offseason, so maybe they won't give a shit.
Yeah.
Anything to fill those Arthur Blank pockets. Am I right?
Do you think they'll finally admit that they're rebuilding?
No. This is all part of the plan.
I don't think so.
No, this is all a part of the plan. Okay.
Yes, they're going to compete this year.
Yeah, they're
Do you
definitely
think we'll still see the Terry laser eyes or whatever?
I mean, yes, but it'll take on a whole new meaning. No, like, they're competing this year. They're competing for the number 1 pick. Okay, we got to get that quarterback in here. But no, we're gonna continue our discussion talking about sort of the implications for this. We'll talk about Mariota a little bit. We did have like a million tips come in, so I'm gonna try to read some of these real quick. While I'm doing that, guys, if you don't mind, thank you to all. This is definitely the biggest show we've ever had in terms of concurrence. We're almost to 600 now. So thanks everyone for watching. If this is your first time, we do regularly scheduled shows when news is not falling from the sky on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. So you can always join us there. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check out the Patreon. Link is patreon.com/Falcoholic Live. Now let me get to some of these donations. And by the way, if you're interested in having your donation read off, you can. The link to that is in the show description as well. We'll try to get to as many as we can tonight. Any that we miss, we will get to on Wednesday, I promise. So thanks so much, guys. First of all, we got Michael Zurk with the $1. What's up, Michael? Thank you so much. He says, hate to say I may be a bit happy if Matt Ryan balls out on the Colts and the Falcons struggle for a while. It's been sad to watch some Falcons fans celebrate Ryan getting traded. Must be those that hadn't watched the Falcons pre-Ryan didn't know how bad we were. Yeah, definitely. Anyone celebrating, I mean, I would celebrate Matt Ryan getting to go to a place where he has a chance to compete, but just, I mean, there are legitimately people out there that are like, oh, wow, yeah, glad to get that bum off our team. And, you guys are going to get what you deserve watching this team without Matt Ryan. Just going to say that. So, okay, I know George Costanza's got a two-parter, so I'll read off both parts real quick. All right, incoming rant. He says, George, thank you so much, by the way. He says, with the Falcons trading Ryan, I rescind my prediction of Jordan Davis at 8. Atlanta will now draft at 8 the quarterback from Liberty who could not beat out Bo Nix. That is true, technically. But, they have had this weird obsession with Bo Nix that I believe is not make any sense to me. But
maybe we draft him at 8.
Maybe we will. We'll talk about that too.
Bo Nix at 8.
Yeah, he continues with the next donation. Thanks again, George. He says, we're going to pass on an elite defensive talent to draft someone who may have been the number 6 quarterback in last year's draft in the top 10. He says, if we were going to move on from Ryan, why not take Fields? I totally agree with you, George. I mean, we were team Fields. I'm not upset that we have Pitts. They must have felt like Fields wasn't their franchise quarterback. That's the only thing I can think of. I think if they had thought of Fields that way, they would have taken him, because clearly they weren't planning on keeping Matt Ryan long term. Even when they were going to void year restructure him like they did before the whole Watson fiasco, that was a sign that they were planning to move Ryan next year with that restructure. So it does beg the question of why wait. Now I think I like Willis a lot better than you do, George, which is fine. He definitely wouldn't have been QB1 last year. He is QB1 this year. And I still wouldn't mind drafting him high because of the ceiling. I mean, he does have a top 5 NFL ceiling, but it is a lot riskier than someone like a Fields, who I think at worst was going to be like an average NFL starter. Even on that bad Bears offense, I think he was starting to show some promise towards the end of the season. So, but thanks again, George. Appreciate it. It still could be Jordan Davis. It could. We'll see. We got Corey Carter with the $5. He says, after 30 years done at least for a while, Falcons created this problem, and I choose to support the QB who represented the franchise to the fullest, only to be disrespected. Falcons literally created this problem. Big true. All right. I'm going to read off just a couple. We'll read off 2 more here from Solaire, and then we'll get back to the discussion. We got Guy Fieri with 2 $1 donations. He says, in 2019, the move not to fire Dimitroff and Quinn cost us a lot. Hope it was worth it. And then after that, he says, to make light of everything, though, hell yeah, brother, draft takes week 1, Felipe Franks season. Yeah, it's going to,
Hey.
hey.
I think it all goes back to not firing Quinn and Dimitroff. And when those guys were the lame duck GM and coach, and letting them make those short-sighted win now moves to, try and keep their jobs, this all stems back to Arthur Blank, no matter how you cut it. Because the Falcons are paying Ryan and Julio Jones $56 million in dead cap this year to not be on your roster. And again, part of that has to do with with Arthur Blank completely taking away Dimitroff's own leverage on that Julio Jones negotiation back when he publicly stated that, oh yeah, Julio Jones is going to be a Falcon for life. Like, you don't do that when you're trying to negotiate a new deal and when the player is holding out. Like, that's just stupid. That's just bad business.
Yeah.
So enjoy the empty stadium, Arthur.
Right. Exactly. So okay. Well, I'll read one more tip off because it's relevant to what we're about to talk about. It's from Noah Cook with the $10. Thank you so much, Noah. Appreciate that, man. He says, holy balls, what an off season. Matt Ryan was the GOAT. Wish him the best of luck. Excited to see what Casey Hayward will do for us and Lorenzo Carter. Who do you guys think is going to replace Mr. Ice, and what are your thoughts on that 3rd round pick? Yeah, it's obviously not enough compensation, but it's something, and they had to get Matt Ryan out of here for his sake and for theirs. So it's something, it'll make my mock drafts a little more fun, having an extra day 2 pick.
Season.
Yeah.
I
so,
say let's not have draft season until November. It's draft season right now.
It's draft season all year long.
23 draft season.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that is a good question. They did just, as Evan pointed out, they did just sign Marcus Mariota within, an hour or 2 after Ryan was traded, which means they were already going to sign Mariota. That deal had already been in the works. It doesn't just happen that quickly, like out of nowhere. So this is planned. I think probably Mariota, just like who was it? AJ McCarron, after the first round of the draft last year, signed the night after they took Kyle Pitts instead of a quarterback. AJ McCarron came in. Same idea. They probably had been in contact with Mariota and said, if we do end up trading Ryan, we're going to bring you in. It's a 2-year deal for Mariota. So I'm guessing you guys don't think Mariota is going to be the long-term starter. He'll probably be the starter this year. But Gina, I'll go to you first. What do you think about the future at quarterback? Do you think it'll be a draft pick this year, draft pick next year? Where are you what are your thoughts on that?
I think that we'll see Mariota as a stopgap this year. I don't know if they will address the position there this year since it's a weaker draft class. I could see them, maybe planning to stick with Mariota for the full 2 years, bring in somebody next year and let them learn behind him for a year. Who knows though? Like, they're bringing in a quarterback who was benched by the Falcons' current head coach when he was at Tennessee. Like, again, this is all just really stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. It's odd, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, maybe it was like, oh, well, Tannehill's just playing that much better. And really, Arthur Smith actually didn't have a problem with Mariota and actually because they went into the season with him as the starter. So it's like, you have to think that he liked him to some extent, but maybe it was just, oh, Tannehill's just better, which seems clear now. But yeah, I mean, he's a stopgap guy, I think. And I think there's a chance that he could be Mariota has always had the ceiling of like a solid or better NFL quarterback. Hasn't reached it often, but I mean, I think in terms of a stopgap guy, Mariota will be watchable. He'll be an okay starter. Is he too good to keep you from getting the number 1 pick? Maybe that's the concern. I don't know, but I don't think he's going to be winning a ton of games with this roster. But yeah, go ahead, Anand.
Oh no, I was going to say, I think regarding quarterback, it's Bryce Young season. I have never, in all my years on this show, I have never been above tanking. But I don't think that the team will have to tank this year. I think they're just going to be bad enough to where they'll be competing for that first overall pick either way. Yeah, no, I think it would behoove the team to win one game next season and have Bryce Young as the quarterback. The same way
they need to win at least one. Yeah, no 0-17.
Don't go winless. That's the only thing I ask.
That's not allowed. Yeah,
but the bar is on the floor right now. Just win one game out of 17. Don't be the first team to go 0-17.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like how the Bengals' fortunes changed when they won 2 games and got Joe Burrow a few years ago. And if you're looking at it from a big picture, the Falcons do have the capability to do this rebuild quickly. It doesn't feel like it has to be a 5-6 year thing, and
right.
Fontenot and Arthur Smith can't afford that because the next guys will be finishing it out in that case. Because this team has as of now, more or less $110 million in cap space next off season, maybe even more if they decide to move on from Calvin Ridley. And if you hit on your draft picks this year, you have some semblance of a foundation with Terrell, Kyle Pitts, hopefully some draft picks this year. Hopefully Richie Grant turns into something decent.
Yep.
Maybe you have some trade backs. You should have plenty of decent compensation picks from all the free agents you lost this year. So this team, this is like something I would do in Madden if I got bored after a few years, except, I would have, been winning titles first and didn't do that.
Right.
Then you just get bored and you strip away the entire team and just you kind of are able to start from scratch with draft picks and with a shit ton of cap room. But this is real life. So, next offseason should be really fun for us at the very least, because they'll be signing guys left and right because, you kind of have to be. I am interested in seeing what they do with Grady Jarrett because he has a year left. I don't know if they want to sign on to continue. I know his dad definitely was. Jesse Tuggle was Falcon.
Yeah, Jesse Tuggle put up with a lot for this franchise.
Oh yeah, Jesse Tuggle admitted he's I'm either going to be a Falcon or I'm going to retire. At one point. So we'll see if Grady Jarrett wants to stick around. I wouldn't blame him if he didn't. I would consider moving him for multiple picks because nothing too bad because you'll probably get a decent comp pick for him anyway if he leaves in free agency. But yeah, this team, it's going to be rough next year. And I wouldn't be furious with the 1-16 season. I'd probably be madder if we went like 5-12 because
Yeah,
then you're just like fucking up your draft pick.
Yeah, exactly.
The Falcons have been doing for years.
Yeah, that is, I think, a good point, a good place to go next. With Grady Jarrett, I think that's sort of the next domino. They just need to know, like, does Grady want to sign an extension or not? If he doesn't, you need to trade him. If he does, then keep him. I would definitely be totally fine with giving him his big contract, keeping him around. They have plenty of cap space now, so sign the good players that want to be here. Like, if Grady wants to stay, I have no problem with that. If he wants to go, you need to trade him now because you're not getting anything for him next year, except a third-round comp pick, maybe. And that's dicey when you're maybe going to go on this spending spree next year. There's no guarantee you're going to get that comp pick because if you go sign a big free agent, it's going to cancel him out. So I think it's a serious conversation you need to have with Grady now to determine. There's not as much of a time crunch with Grady. It could be later. You know, they don't have to do it right now. They could do it during the draft. They could do whatever they want. So they have time with Grady, but I think that is a big piece remaining because he saves them a lot of money. And if he doesn't want to be here, he could still get them a premium pick. I mean, an early day 2 pick, I would say at worst. So now I've been wrong, about pick compensation with this team. So to be fair, I'm hoping that they're not over a barrel with the Grady negotiations at least. So, but that is the next sort of piece to fall. Evan, I realize I didn't give you a chance to weigh in on the Falcons quarterback future, so I did want to give you a chance
that's
as well.
Plenty okay, Kevin.
You're good on that? Yeah, you're not going to wade in? Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like, I really like Malik Willis. I would have no qualms at all about taking him at 8.
I mean, I will say that is increasingly going to happen more than it was a couple weeks ago, just because you kind of have that. I mean, the need was going to be there eventually, but it's more like, okay, like Mariota's not your future. I mean, I know it's a 2-year deal, but I mean, and I don't know the specifics, but he could be out next year. So the odds of them drafting a quarterback have risen a ton.
Oh, yeah. Oh, exponentially. Yeah. And again, they were doing a lot of work on Kenny Pickett today. I honestly don't have a huge problem with Kenny Pickett now. Like, I've never had a problem with Kenny Pickett. I think if Matt Ryan was going to be on the team next year or like this season, I didn't really get the Kenny Pickett pick because it's sort of like, well, you're just sort of trading Matt Ryan for another Matt Ryan. Like, if you're going to take a quarterback with Matt Ryan possibly here, you want to go for ceiling. But with Matt Ryan not in the picture, I think Kenny Pickett could make more sense because I think he's a very high floor, pro-ready quarterback that's going to be like a Mac Jones type of guy. Like, if you put a good offense around him, he can be an above-average quarterback. I don't know. Can he be more than that? I don't know. He actually tested out as a better athlete than I thought at the combine, so maybe he has a little bit more dual threat ability than we thought. There's the hand size concern, but he's playing in a dome. So I honestly don't have a problem with Kenny Pickett at 8 either. Those are the only 2 I would consider at 8. Nobody else. I would be fine. I think they're either going to take a guy they like at 8 or they're going to see who falls to 43. I think they love Desmond Ridder. So if Desmond Ridder's there, I think they'll take him, no question. But I don't know that he'll be there. We'll see. Say they do trade Grady for like a late first-round pick or an early second or something. That could be a spot where they look to target. There were rumors they were interested in Carson Strong too, possibly. So, I think they could swing at someone this year, but I also think what you guys were saying about sort of I think it's no longer a low-key tank season. This is a very high-key tank season. So it's entirely possible they try their hand at getting a top pick and see if they like any of these guys that shake out of next year's class. I do caution you with that. Everybody thought Spencer Rattler was going to be QB1 this year, and guess what happened to him? He got benched and transferred, and he's not getting drafted at all. So you never know what's going to happen. Guys get hurt. Guys have bad years. It doesn't always go the way you think, but the flip side of that is there'll be other guys that end up playing well and playing themselves into the conversation, so it's not always bad.
Came out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Yeah, let's have Arthur Blank start, offering those $100,000 checks per loss like the Dolphins owner with Brian Flores.
Oh, jeez. I don't want to go down that path. Oh, jeez. Yeah. But no, I mean, it's a dire situation. But yeah, there's a couple more tips, but I do want to give you guys a chance to get some final thoughts off before we wrap up because we've been here for an hour now. Gene, I'll let you get the first crack here. Anything else you want to add on this whole unfortunate situation?
Yeah, I wish Matt Ryan all the best. I think Indianapolis is a great landing spot for him. I wish him all the success. I hope that he's able to win a Super Bowl because I believe that he genuinely deserves it. And the Falcons are currently a clown show, and that's basically how I feel about the whole situation.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good. I would say that's a pretty good sum up of everything that's going on. Sort of a clown show. Yep. All right. Adnan, any final thoughts?
Dean Pease didn't unretire for this shit.
That man is just stewing somewhere, I'm sure. I mean, he's
like
like
70 years old. He should be, stress free, coaching high school or some shit, or in a rocking chair.
Now he's got to carry the load with this defense. So it's going to be really funny when the Falcons actually have a good defense this year, and it's like the offense is just like 32nd in the league, and they still don't win any games. That's going to be real justice right there.
It'll be a 5-part 30-second too. Like, it'll be one of those like ugly 30 seconds.
Like it's not even close to the next team. Yeah.
Yeah, just like the Falcons' sack numbers this past year.
Yep.
They had like 17 sacks. The Eagles, who were 31st, had 29 sacks. And then you had like the Packers were 15th, 14th with like 38 sacks, which is less of a gap between the Eagles and Packers than it was between the Falcons and Eagles. Like you had two guys this year have more sacks than the Falcons' entire team, and both of those are guys the Falcons could have signed. This franchise is incompetent. But I still can't quit them. I'm still pulled in.
Yep.
I'll still be here next off season. Eager to see what we spend money on.
Yeah, it's sort of like when you see all the flashing lights at the side of the highway when you drive past. You just can't help but look at it. You want to know what's going on. It's not good, and you feel bad, but like you just have to look. That's kind of what the Falcons are right now. So, all right, Evan. Anything else you want to add before I get to these final?
No. Just buckle up. It's going to be a fun season. Off season still to go, but then next season's going to be a real hoot because people were melting down last year.
People thought last year was
schedule's
bad.
more tough. Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh, our viewership is going to skyrocket after those losses.
Props to you guys. You guys always show up for the losses, so that we at least have that to lean back on, is that we know we're going to have plenty of viewers once they start losing all these games, because you guys always seem to tune in after the losses, not the wins. So I think people just, misery loves company, right? We all got to sit here and take our L's together. Yeah.
Can we blame Tom Brady for a second? Everything seemed to be going like according to plan. Matt Ryan was the best in the division by far, and that was like 2 weeks ago. Not even maybe.
Yeah.
Like he shows up, and now he's by far the best.
Yeah,
I will say, Deshaun Watson's agent deserves a raise, because that man just used the Falcons. He's like, hey, Deshaun, call the Falcons real quick. They're gullible enough for this shit.
Yep.
We'll get you some more money out here. Probably got like $50 million more guaranteed just because of the Falcons.
Yeah, that's an unprecedented contract.
Red carpet and everything.
Oh yeah, they got like
the red carpet.
They got the red carpet. They got every rapper.
Part.
Yeah,
they had all the Atlanta celebrities just falling over themselves on Twitter. Oh my god!
Ready to give them the key to the city.
They embarrassed the entire city while they were at it. It wasn't enough that it was just the Falcons. It was the entire city too.
Yeah. And before anyone asks, no, the Falcons aren't going to trade AJ Terrell. It's the stupidest take I've ever seen. I know no one in here was pushing it. There was a certain person pushing it on Twitter. That is not an option. Like, they're going to shop expensive players on expiring contracts, like Grady Jarrett, we talked about, Deion Jones, maybe, those sorts of guys. They're not going to shop their star rookie corner who's making like $2 million. He's part of the rebuild. They're not gonna. You don't get anything from trading. Like, you have so few stars as it is. Don't trade the ones you have on cheap contracts right now. That's not gonna happen. That's not an option. So don't worry about that, guys.
And I just want to say the real winners here, the Atlanta Braves, because they look much better due to the Falcons' incompetence. Also,
addition by subtraction. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Also, people won't have to decide between going to a Falcons and a Braves game this October / September. Because all eyes are going to be on the Braves making another playoff run while the Falcons are trying not to go 0-17.
Yeah. No, it's that's gonna make it real clear for the people that have a choice. I unfortunately don't have a choice because I don't really follow baseball. So maybe I should get into it now. Now that the Braves are good. But again, the only time I watched a Braves game was when Acuna got hurt. So I feel like I can't ever watch the Braves again because that was the one time I tuned in. So I have to sort of stay away. Yeah,
you're banned.
I'm banned forever. I said I would never watch even during the World Series, and I didn't, and they won. So I think I just need to stay with what works at this point, and we won't worry about that. All right, guys, I'm going to read off. We got a couple more tips from Corey Carter that I'll get to real quick before we sign off. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Those really help us out. Leave a comment if you don't mind. Check out the Patreon. And again, thanks to everyone who donated. We'll be back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, here we go. We got Corey Carter with the $1. He says, you know who's laughing the hardest today? Thomas Dimitrov. We got a couple more from Corey. I'll just knock out here real quick. Thanks again, Corey. He says, Fontenot's rope just shortened, and now it looks like a noose. Fontenot may be a terrible negotiator. Other teams wanted Watson, but we don't know about them for a reason. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because the Falcons were did get very publicly involved. I'm sure there were a lot of teams that called. The Falcons sort of got publicly involved, and that didn't work out super well for them. Then again, asking, do you think we could have gotten a first for Ridley if he was not suspended? Yes, I do think they would have got a first for Ridley. I think it would have been one of the Eagles' first, but we'll see. And then can't wait to root for Jonathan Taylor and Ryan next year. And then finally, he says, if there's anyone in the Warner Robins area that wants to meet for a beer to get the Ryan stuff off their chest, he'll be buying. So, reach out to Corey Carter, guys, if you want to go get a beer and vent about this Ryan trade. Thanks again, Corey. And then we got one final one from Jason Gaines. Pissed off with the org about can't believe they didn't keep Ryan in the loop about the Watson scenario. Worried that Fontenot is a Saints plant, subversive and sabotage from within. Also blamed to Richard
on the show.
Yes, we joked about that. I think we might need to start taking that seriously now.
However, I will say Fontenot kept the Saints from getting Deshaun Watson. So.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have gone worse, but just not much worse. At least he didn't go in the conference. So.
Also, I forgot that Arthur Smith's dad is worth $5 billion, so paying him off to tank probably won't work.
Yeah, no, they're gonna have to pump those numbers up if they want to get him to tank games. Again, those are rookie numbers in this business. So,
bro, I think his dad is worth more than Arthur Blank himself.
He might be. And FedEx is pretty big.
2.5 billion less. So
yeah. Okay, yeah, that's just 2.5 then. Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks again so much for tuning in. Obviously, a sad day for Falcons fans. Go out there. And just be kind to your fellow Falcons fans today. Remember the good times with Matt Ryan. We'll be here for you. We got all kinds of stuff coming at thefalcoholic.com. We're going to be leaning hard into draft takes now because if we don't, we'll probably cry about the state of the team. So, hope springs eternal this time of year. We're going to move, past this. We're going to get through it. We're going to suffer together. And, maybe we'll come out the other side a better team. Maybe, right? Maybe? Yeah, no? Okay. Well, we'll deal with that another time. But again, thank you so much to Adnan Ikic, he's at Say Which Way on Twitter, to Evan Birchfield, Director of Guest Personnel at Evan Birchfield, and to Gina Kelly at Gina Thomas. By the way, guys, joining us Wednesday night will be Patrick DeMarco, former Falcons fullback. Great dude. Can't wait to talk to him. So make sure you join us on Wednesday at 8 p.m. for that show as well. Until then, guys, have a great day. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Falcoholic Live. See you, folks.